This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, go ahead, Len.
Yeah, okay. Well, first we'll find out who would like to take the floor tonight, who would like to give us some updates on what's been going on. I'm just going to start at the top of my list on my screen, which says Carl Foreman.
Hello, Len. Yes, I would like some time.
Good, you've got it. And hello, Sylvester.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome. Dennis Correa.
Thank you, Len. I don't need any time.
Okay, Dennis, thank you. John Appler.
I'm okay, Len. Thanks for asking. I'm just going to listen. Thank you.
All right, John, thank you. Kim from Colorado, I believe.
Yes, I think I'll mostly listen. But thank you.
All right. Looks like Carl's going to get a lot of time tonight. Paul Frieda.
I'm good tonight.
Thank you, sir. And Peter, you must have something for us.
Yeah, I might have a comment about that study that Rick sent out about oligometastatic. Yeah.
Okay. We can talk about that. And Sylvester, I know you don't usually want to take the floor, but is tonight going to be different?
No, I should have been the first one you asked.
Okay. Well, I have something to contribute, so I'll put my own name down here. Oh, darn it. Hold on, guys. Just got a phone call. Just want to turn off my phone. Oh, it's Bill. Hey, Bill. Yeah, take your time. Okay, great. Right. Bye-bye. All right, guys, that was Bill. And he'll be with us in about 5 minutes.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. Okay, so who has something to say that'll take less than 5 minutes? Anybody?
Yeah, I just want to say quickly, in regards specifically to Bill, that he's been very helpful to me because I'm kind of feel like a brother to him because I am also BRCA2 positive. He's provided me with a wealth of information. I've been on a similar track to him, although I'm a little bit over a year into my journey, and I think he's. I'm not sure quite whether it's 3 or 4 years or whatever that might be. So I was getting a lot of inspiration from him, and I clearly wish him well.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Carl. He's been a fantastic wealth of information for all of us. As most of you probably know, his career was as a cancer researcher at Roswell Park in Buffalo, one of the NCCN hospitals and one of the finest cancer research institutes in the country. Well, as long as you don't mind being interrupted in your tale and your story, Carl, you can take the floor.
Oh, okay. Well, I started talking before everybody was on the call, but just to go over what I had said a little while ago, I have, as Paul Frieda had mentioned, he has an MRI tomorrow, and as do I, for I guess somewhat different reason. And I was also asking Jake how well he was doing. So my MRI is scheduled for tomorrow morning in regards to some side effects, some pain that I've been feeling, which it's not clear what exactly it is. I had met with my oncologist a number of weeks ago. Oh, there's Rick. And, my question to my oncologist is that, these side effects I'm feeling are very similar to the list of side effects relating to olaparib. And although he could not conclusively say it's from the olaparib, what he decided to do was to what they call dose modification. And I've been on a full dose, actually I've been told it's more than the full standard dose of 4 100 milligram tablets twice a day, which I believe is part of the ongoing trials that are out there specifically for olaparib, which is a PARP inhibitor, which is for men who have BRCA2 positive genetic defect, which I do. And as I mentioned, Bill, of course, also, and he had gone through that with the olaparib himself. So he had cut back on the olaparib. I've been off of it or at the lower dose for the past 2 weeks. And yesterday I called up my oncologist and said, I'm feeling better. And he said, well, okay, we will go back to the full dose and see if you continue to do fine with that. And in lieu of that, I also have this MRI of the lumbar spine with and without contrast tomorrow morning, which my primary care doctor recommended because I've been having some lower back, some pelvic pain, some pain in the legs, and some other places, which, again, have gotten better over the past several weeks. Once before, when I was on this forum, I did mention that I was diagnosed with a partial blood clot. And at that point, I was put on Eliquis, a blood thinner. The follow-up Doppler showed I have a good blood flow, so I'm continuing on Eliquis for the foreseeable future. I do have a follow-up appointment with my primary care doctor to talk about that, whether it's going to be a lifetime medication I need or whether I can stop using that. And so we'll see what happens tomorrow morning. And in addition, because I try to do as much as possible in regards to my treatment regimen, and I asked both my oncologist and my primary care doctor, first of all, I wanted to talk about CBD oil. And I was looking into that. I've been a regular user of acupuncture for the past probably 3 or 4 years on a regular basis. And in talking to my acupuncturist, she said to me, I have a good number of cancer patients, and most of them who are on CBD oil. And she said, but just about all of them have talked about how well it has helped them with managing their pain and their side effects. And I think, okay, well, I've got side effects, so let me start on the CBD oil, which I did about 10 days ago. A friend of mine recommended a particular brand because there are a number of them out there. I found a local shop that offers it, and I have purchased a tincture of the standard strength. There are 2 strengths in that particular product, standard and enhanced. And I figured, well, first time I'm using it, let me start lower down and see if it's any side effects, if it's going to help me. So I have been on it for a week, and it's a tincture. You take a dropper and you put it under your tongue. And so I couldn't really say definitively whether it helped me. It didn't hurt me. And as I kept doing research about CBD oil, where to purchase it, what type, what are the legitimate places that are manufacturing it, and I found something very interesting, which before I even took the CBD oil, I did ask my primary care doctor, I did ask my oncologist about it. Both of them said the same thing. They said, well, we don't know much about it, so we're not opposed to you trying it. All right, well, thank you. And I started it. And then I read, whoop, I hear an echo. But then I read online, you can't always believe what's online, but in several places I saw the same thing about CBD oil, that if you're on certain medications that say that you should not take grapefruit or grapefruit juice because it could diminish the effectiveness of the medication, then the CBD oil could have a negative effect. Okay, my doctors didn't know that. And then I immediately just stopped it because I know the olaparib says it on there, stay away from grapefruit. There's another medication, a statin that I'm taking, another one, stay away from grapefruit. I'm not sure about the Eliquis, but I stopped taking it, and then I went to instead of ingesting the CBD oil. I got a topical cream, and I've been using it since then, although I'm not quite sure. In discussions with a certified aromatherapist that I reached out to, and that person has said, well, the tincture, ingesting it, it's going to get into your bloodstream, clearly, a lot faster. But if you use the creams, it's also eventually getting to go into your bloodstream. So I said, oh, gosh. So that's another possibility that I may have to stop using the CBD cream. And they're not inexpensive. I mean, they're about $40, $50, $60 for a 4-ounce tube, which, if you're lucky, I guess it'll last about a month. So I do have a tube that I'm using, and I'm using it sparingly right now. The certified aromatherapist, I am going to follow up with her next week. She is a local person, and she gave me some interesting points, and it seems that she knows what she's talking about. So I think it's worth following up with her, because she was the one who said, with the bloodstream and everything. She says she's done a lot of research with various essential oils, and they do not enter the bloodstream like a CBD oil would do. So I'll see what she says about that. She just initially talked about the use of frankincense oil. So I'm not sure if anybody else has had any use of essential oils, but that's another thing that I'm looking into. So there's several things I'm posing out here to everybody. First of all, the CBD oil. Second of all, the essential oils. Side effects of medication. How have you dealt with it? How have you been able to figure out, or your team of medical doctors have been able to figure out, is it an evidence of advancing disease, or is it simply just a side effect of the medication? When I asked that question of my oncologist, is it evidence of advanced disease, which I sure and hell hope not, he said, well, you're doing so well on olaparib. Your PSA is non-detectable, so I tend to believe it's not advancement of your disease. If that's true, we don't know, but maybe there'll be more clarity once I have my MRI tomorrow of the lumbar spine.
Okay, Carl, I just want to fill in Rick that Bill called me just a few minutes ago and said he'd be coming on in a few minutes. So I told the guys that when he does come on, whoever happens to be speaking at the time will have to interrupt him. I told Bill we give him priority. He'll tell his story. We'll have questions, and then we'll let him go, and then we'll get back to whoever was speaking, just so you know.
Perfect. Good suggestion. Hello.
And thanks for joining us, Mr. Rick. You look a little sleep deprived, but not too bad. Okay, so getting back to Carl now. CBD oil. Carl, let me first ask you, do you have a medical marijuana license? I believe it's possible to get one in New Jersey, which I think is where you...
Well, I don't know if it's a license per se, but I think it's a card that is issued by a licensed physician that would allow me to go to a dispensary and obtain the medical-based marijuana, which there is a dispensary not very far from where I live, but I haven't yet approached that area.
Oh, so you don't have the card yet?
No, and I would have to go to a specific physician. I asked my primary care doctor about that, and he said he had looked into it about a year or two ago, but he said it was a somewhat complicated process for him to get the license, for him to issue the cards, so he has not pursued it. But here in New Jersey, he said Governor Murphy is very pro using marijuana for medicinal purposes, and it's become like in several other states, it's become quite popular. So that might be an option for me at some point.
So my recommendation to you is, if you're going to dabble with CBD, get it through one of these approved dispensaries that you're just talking about. Because if you get it over the counter, you get it on the internet or anywhere else, you're really not sure what the hell you're getting.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. If your doctor's having a problem figuring out how to get you this this card and approval, you can just Google medical marijuana doctors near me, something like that, and you put in your zip code and a bunch of names.
I did do that, and I did find a local doctor who's affiliated with the dispensaries, so I do have somebody in my back pocket, so to speak.
Good.
I just went to Google Maps and typed in dispensary of Palm Beach County, and a map came up with like 6 different places that I could go to. So
right, yeah.
Google Maps shows you exactly where they are.
Yeah, it is a bit of a bureaucratic process, and it'll cost you at least $100 for the license and whatever the doctor charges you. But at least you know you're getting real CBD or THC or whatever you want. But,
Yeah, not only that, but there are so many different strains of CBD that if you tell them specifically what's bothering you, they're going to be able to recommend the best strain for you. Now, you know, the issue with the CBD oil is that we know it is definitely has great palliative properties. But there are so many things that it helps that really you should be telling them why you need it. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know anybody that has used it on a prophylactic basis. So when your acupuncturist tells you, well, yeah, you know, I got friends who take it and they feel better for it. I mean, I haven't heard it used like that. Where I've heard it used is I don't have good appetite, or I feel nauseous, or I've got pain, or I cannot sleep, but not taking it so that it'll just be prophylactic.
Jake, do we know who caller 4 is?
No. Would somebody just join us on the telephone?
Yeah, okay. So, Jake and Len, this is Bill. I'm finally here.
Hi, Bill.
Hello, Bill.
Welcome to the call. We agreed we're going to start with you immediately. So you have the floor, sir.
Okie doke. So I apologize for the late entry. Back a couple of weeks ago, I made the mistake of sitting with my lap in and a glass of water, and you can imagine what happened next. So I'm using a new computer that was not set up yet for connecting with you guys, but I'm here now. I'm actually on my phone instead of my computer. So are we ready to go?
Yep, we hear you just fine.
Okay. So I thought that I would start by just giving you guys a reminder of what my case has been about. So just give me one more minute. My wife Deb is hooking up power to my phone. Terrific. Thank you, Tina. So as I think some of you know, I was diagnosed with an aggressive case of prostate cancer about 7 years ago in 2013. And my case was driven by a pathogenic mutation in the BRCA2 gene, or which is a breast cancer gene. And surprisingly, there are many oncologists who don't know that mutations in breast cancer genes can also cause prostate cancer. But that certainly was the case for me. And not only does it cause prostate cancer, but it can cause very aggressive cases. So, so I was diagnosed in 2013, and at some point shortly after that, I joined you guys on this call, and I've continued for a couple of years after that to work at Roswell Park on a senior scientist, or retired now, as a senior scientist at Roswell Park Cancer Institute, which is a comprehensive cancer center here in Buffalo. And they have been providing just outstanding care. I've been, I think really fortunate to have access to, to their facilities and their doctors. So I want to talk about my new experiences. Hopefully there aren't very many of you that are in the same boat that I am, which is that I recently entered hospice care. And what that specifically means is that there are no longer any treatment that will work for me. About 3 weeks ago, my wife Deb and I sat down with my oncologist at Roswell, Kamal Chada, and he told us that he has run out of scripts to treat me, and that that there really is nothing that they can do beyond this point. So that meant that it was time to move into a new phase of not treatment, since it's not available anymore, but palliative care through hospice. I am very, very fortunate to have access to just a wonderful hospice team here in Buffalo. And so, I think it's important to know that there are two different versions of hospice in this country. One is a commercial version, and it's not terribly good. The commercial hospice providers are generally money makers, and they're more interested in making money than in the care of their patients. But was just so lucky to be able to hook up with hospice care here in Buffalo that is volunteer. And they are just, it's an amazing team. So once I signed up for them, so in order to become eligible for hospice, your doctor needs to certify that you have 6 months or less to live. And that doesn't mean, of course, it's very difficult to predict how long someone's horizon of survival is going to be. But, so it could be a lot longer and it could be a lot shorter. You just never know. It depends on individual cases. Kamal Chada told Deb and me when we had this discussion 3 weeks or so ago that he thinks that my margin of survival is probably on the order of 2 months. And I don't, I think that he's probably a little bit too conservative there. I think that I'm in very good health otherwise. And, I think, based on what my caregivers from hospice have been telling me now that I've signed up, I suspect that it's going to be, more on the order of 6 months. And I'm hoping to squeeze maybe 9 months of survival. I have data from experiments for about 2 more science papers that I'm really anxious to write up. And I'm working on a book about my experiences as both a prostate cancer patient and scientist. And so I'm hoping that I will be able to finish these things. And I'm, moderately optimistic that I'll be able to pull this off. So since I entered hospice 3 weeks ago or so, the word has gone out to my friends and family, of course, and there's been a steady stream of visitors coming to visit me from all over the country. I mean, it's just been amazing. The best man at Deb's and my wedding 32 years ago, who's now a trauma surgeon at Dana-Farber, was one of the first ones to come to visit. And Mike Whalen is just a terrific physician. I was lucky. At one point, I was being treated at Dana-Farber, and on one of my trips to Boston for treatment, I was lucky enough to visit Mike's lab and meet his postdocs and students and talk about cancer, and that was I think, a valuable experience for both them and for me. In addition to Mike Whalen, my brothers have been visiting. I have a slew of brothers from that live in Vermont and mostly in the Northeast. And I have a sister who lives in Vermont that I'm going to visit next week. So my brothers have visited. One of my younger brothers showed up with about 12 3-foot-long marshmallow sticks, and so we had a great time out in our backyard roasting marshmallows with a bunch of other friends. I've also been visited by my coworkers and some other family members, and last but not least, I've been visited by Rick, our fearless leader, who showed up here in Buffalo a couple of weeks ago and hung out for, I don't know, Rick, what was it, about 6 days? And we had a great time. It was great to see Rick again in person. So so it's been so far it's been a really positive experience. My goal going forward at this point is to make this process as easy as possible for my friends and family and for me. And so, that's an issue of attitude, I think, to a large extent. And I think that so far it seems to be working. I can tell you that at this point, I'm feeling pretty damn good. And Rick, that includes, I think something has happened in the last week or so that has made my life quite a bit easier. I'm stronger. When you were here, I think I was having a great deal of difficulty moving. It was like a switch had been flipped, and all of a sudden, I was a normal person, and then I could barely walk. And, I became confused mentally. I did have a procedure called cyberknife surgery. So this is a really high-tech procedure that eliminates nets from the brain, of which I had many. And so the way that this worked was I was, put on a bed, and my head was attached to a helmet with a face mask that was molded to my face. It was made of polypropylene, and it was warmed up so that they could mold it. And then when it cooled down, it was snapped onto the helmet. And of course, the idea here is to completely immobilize my head so that they can shoot radiation at nets without, with as little collateral damage as possible. And so that means that I could not move. And so every time we went through this procedure twice, and every time that we did, the first question I asked when we were finished was, did I stay still enough? And my physician said that I did. So I think that, I think I was able to avoid most collateral damage to, to brain tissue. The nets that were zapped were rather large. I had one on my right temporal lobe that was about 2 centimeters in size, and another one on my left that was about 3. And they were able to get rid of them. So the gamma rays were aimed using the help of magnetic resonance imaging, and so it's pretty precise. The radiation does cause the nets to swell initially, and that caused headaches. But my doctors gave me steroid, which eliminated the swelling or reduced it significantly. And so I haven't had any headaches for at least a couple of weeks. And I don't quite understand what is going on, but in the last week or so, all of a sudden I've gotten much stronger, meaning that I can walk again. And, yesterday I was on my feet for at least 2 hours helping my wife clean the house. And this is just remarkable considering that, when Rick was visiting me, I think I was in really poor shape. And I don't understand. It is the case, though, that, you can read in the literature that cancer patients do sometimes rally as they're, going through hospice, even in the absence of any treatment. And so I think that that's probably what's happening. It's not going to last. And, may it last as long as possible, but eventually it's going to stop. So can you guys still hear me? Hello, Rick, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you,
Yes,
Bill. We hear you okay.
Very
Okay.
well.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Very
Okay,
well.
good.
We're just all muting so we don't disturb you. Bill, this is
Okay.
phenomenal. I mean, this is phenomenal what I'm hearing, and you sound so much better. Your voice is stronger.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what everybody
I
says.
can just. I mean, you also, I'm sure, are fully aware that if for any reason you want to resume any kind of treatment, you can do that. I mean, guys, you should know that hospice is revocable.
Yes,
I'm
thank you
not
for
suggesting.
reminding me.
Yes, go ahead. Why don't you discuss that, Bill?
Yeah, so as Rick said, hospice is not, it is revocable, just as Rick just said. And, and so that's something that if I continue to improve, I may want to consider. But balancing against that is the fact that I really want this process to be as easy as possible for my family. And so I don't want to drag it out unnecessarily. I did put in a email this morning to my oncologist at Dana-Farber, who's also like Kamal Chada at Roswell, who Rick now knows. Rick went with me to my appointments with him when he was here. But Atish Chowdhury at Dana-Farber is just another phenomenally good clinician. And this morning when I woke up, I've been getting up at, 5 o'clock in the morning. I have to tell you that, it's not always easy. I mean, I'm dying, and it can be fearful. And I've had some anxiety attacks. But fortunately, they've been few and far between, so it hasn't been a big problem. But anyway, I lost my train of thought here. What was I saying right before that, Rick, about
We were speaking about the hospice being revocable and
right,
Atish.
yeah, right. So I sent Atish an email at Atish Chowdhury at Dana-Farber this morning, and I just said, you know, Atish, do you have any ideas about experimental treatment that might work for me? And you know, which if he said yes, then at that point I would need to revoke, you know, my status as a hospice patient. And his answer was very, very difficult. But he basically said no. There's nothing. He agrees with Kamal Shada that there's really nothing left in their bag of tricks. And so he recommended that I do just what I'm doing, which is, you know, focus on my family and friends and enjoy life as much as I possibly can. So that's what I have been doing, and it's working pretty well. So I'd like to give you guys a little bit more of an idea of what hospice is about. So once I decided to go into hospice, I met with a team of clinicians, mostly nurses. I haven't met a physician yet, but that will happen soon. And the first thing that happened was they showed up with about 3 truckloads full of equipment. So wheelchairs and walkers and other devices to keep me as mobile as possible. And including a hospital bed that we were able to put into a room downstairs. I'm going to try to turn on my camera here and show you, if I can, the room that I'm in now. I don't know. Can you guys see anything? Whoops.
Not yet. Oh, so you're not in a you're in your home you're having your hospice care in your own house.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh.
I'm at home. Okay. And that's where I hope to be for the rest of my life.
Good.
And so
that's
this
great.
is what we call our plant room. It's a beautiful room on the first floor, and the hospital bed that the hospice brought is in this room. I don't. It's here because at some point I'm not going to be able to walk upstairs to our bedroom anymore. I haven't reached that point yet, but so now I'm using the bed as a place to nap. I mean, it's a really nice room to be hanging out in. So the clinicians, the hospice team has been here every day since I started hospice care. And, initially they were just going through the process and explaining how it works. A big issue, of course, is medication. I have become dependent, not physically dependent, but mentally dependent on pain meds. I take 2, I can't remember the precise dose, but a couple of tablets of methadone for pain management every day, and I also have oral hydromorphone or Dilaudid for breakout pain. Once again, because of whatever is going on in the last couple of weeks, I haven't needed very much pain medication, other than the methadone. I take on a regular basis. So I'd like to say a little bit about methadone, because there are many, many oncologists who don't think that methadone is valuable. And this is a big mistake. Methadone is the best way to manage the type of chronic pain that someone like me has. And I don't understand why so many oncologists are reluctant to consider its use. And this is something I think that we have talked as a group. I remember, maybe a year or two ago about, and it just doesn't make sense. But, when any of you find yourself in the position that I'm in, and hopefully that's not going to be very many of you, I would speak strongly to your physicians about using methadone as a way to control pain. The Dilaudid has been useful for breakout pain, and once again, because of whatever is going on recently, I haven't needed a lot. I don't think that I've taken any Dilaudid actually for several days. But, it's a temporary. I'm going to be requiring Dilaudid on a more regular basis in the future. I did, the hospice team, in addition to bringing all this equipment, brought a booklet that explains the process of dying, which has been extremely painful to read, but necessary. It's, it explains that in the absence of treatment, that your body just shuts down. Things stop working. And, and that's happening already. I think that plus the weakness that I'm feeling in my leg, I'm hoping to reverse that. The hospice team has put in an order for physical therapy, which will start in another couple of weeks. And I'm hoping that that will, make it possible for me to continue to navigate at least around the house on my own without my wife's help. I do have, to help me, I do have a walker, that I can push around. But, once again, although I needed it a couple of weeks ago, I'm pretty much able to walk around the house now without the help of the walker. I'm trying to prolong things as much as possible by remaining as active as I can. And I'm also trying hard to do that by managing my diet in a smart way. And that's one of my biggest challenges is that I really love ice cream. So one reason why I was a little late on the call is because Deb and I went to the creamy stand over by the Niagara River before the call started to get a hot fudge sundae. This is not terribly smart. I know from my research in my laboratory that sugar, once it's converted to glucose by the body, is a mitogen, that is a growth factor. And that means that it will stimulate the growth of tumor cells. And so I am trying very hard to restrict my consumption of sweet stuff. Now that I'm past all the, the commotion of all these friends of mine visiting, I think that I'm hoping that I'll be able to do a better job of that. I should say that I've also been visited by my cousin Dan Connor is, was Dan here, Rick, when you were here? Did you meet Dan?
No, he was not.
Okay. Dan lives in California. He's one of my favorite relatives. Dan he spent the summer with me when he was 15 years old because he was having, he wasn't getting a lot of parental support at home. And so I had his dad fly him out to Buffalo, and he hung out for the summer with Devin. And I put him to work in the lab. Actually, it wasn't in Buffalo. It was when I was still in Vermont, I guess. And so, Dan is a helicopter pilot now. And he's actually, he was the pilot of Marine One for a few years. So he flew Dick Cheney, or he was a pilot of Marine Two. So he flew Dick Cheney around and sometimes flew Marine One as well. But he's a great guy, and it was just so great to have him visit me. The other thing that we're planning to do is on Friday, we're going to head to Vermont, my beloved Vermont, and it may be my last time. My Deb has rented a SUV so that I can be comfortable, and my younger daughter Molly, who now lives in Connecticut, where I grew up, is going to join us. On Friday, we will head to the shore in Connecticut, and I'm going to dip my toes into the ocean for one last. Hold on one sec. There's an ambulance going by. Okay, so we're going to hang out with Molly for a couple of days, and in Connecticut, and at a beach where when I was in high school I used to surf, and then we're going to head north to Vermont and spend 4 or 5 days with my older brother Buzz and his wife Chris, who live in what's called the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. It's way up near the Canadian border. They have this fabulous property, just 70 acres crisscrossed with hiking trails and cross-country ski trails. And, I just wish that I could take advantage of them, but that's not going to be possible. But it will be wonderful to just hang out on their deck and look out over the valley. And my family will once again join us there from, various, not the ones that live on the West Coast, but my brothers that live elsewhere in Vermont. They're going to come and hang out with us. And then there are a couple of other friends from when we lived in New Jersey that are going to join us as well. So that's what my plan is. I think that hopefully none of you are headed to hospice, meaning that you're still on the curve toward a cure. And boy, do I really hope that that's the case for all of us. I think given the number of people on this call, there's bound to be at least a few who are going to find yourselves in the same boat that I am. I think that you should feel free to take advantage of my experience as a hospice patient, and to ask me any questions that you have, regardless of whether or not you're headed to hospice. I mean, I would be happy to, tell you what it's about I plan to, to participate in our calls as much as I possibly can going forward until that doesn't become possible. And, once again, you just never know. As anyone in the cancer business will tell you, there's just no way to predict how long someone's survival is going to be. I'm certainly hoping, as I said earlier, that mine will be long enough to, get to finish up the writing that I want to do, and to continue to hang out with my family and friends and all this stuff possible. So that's what I have to tell you. I would be happy to answer any questions that any of you might have.
Bill, I have a question. How's your weight doing?
It's stable, Rick. It's
Good.
been I dropped 10 pounds, I think, around the time that you were visiting me.
Yep.
But down to 148. And it's been there. I weigh myself every day, and it's stayed right there for the last couple of weeks.
Fantastic. Good.
Yeah, and I should. Oh, so the other thing that's worth noting is, you hear about how cancer patients lose their appetites and lose weight quickly. That hasn't been the case for me. I mean, I did drop 10 pounds, but then it stabilized. And the reason why is because of the dexamethasone steroid that I'm taking, which makes you really hungry. And so my appetite has remained quite stable, and, eventually it's going to decline. But at the moment, I'm continuing to be able to eat without any problem.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Bill, I'm over in England right now. So I'm thinking, you're feeling that good, maybe you could hop on a plane, we'll go see De Bono together and see if he's got any solutions for you.
Oh, don't tempt me, Rick. For those of you that may not know, Johann De Bono is the world expert in prostate cancer in London, and he has helped me in the past. So that's who Rick is referring to, but you're tempting me, Rick. I might but I don't, I think his answer is going to be the same as Atisha's and Thomas. Yeah. So anybody else have any questions about the process or, what's going on with me?
Yeah, Bill, it's Len. I was just curious, how many hours a day do you have hospice staff with you?
Not very much, Len. So far, they've been here for, initially several hours a day because we were setting things up and had a lot to talk about. But in the last couple of days, they've just been checking in for an hour, and taking my vitals and, just making sure that everything's going smoothly.
Yeah, I think it's a good point we should make here as to what home hospice involves in terms of care. So home hospice will check in with you every day, but it is not the same as 24/7 care. And if you need additional care, then it's up to you as the patient caregiver to hire additional staff on your dime. And I think that's a very, very important fact. The other thing I want to just mention.
Well, before you go any further, Rick, you're correct, but that is for, I think, mostly for commercial hospice caregivers. In my case, the Buffalo Hospice Organization, has told me that if I need them at any point, to just call them and they will come here. And it's not on my dime. You know,
Wow.
they will just, yeah. So, you know, this morning, you know, for the first time, I had difficulty getting out of one of my favorite chairs. And, you know, we had to call a neighbor to help lift me out of it. But then when the hospice caregiver came a couple hours later, she said, just call us and we'll come and get you out.
Wow. Wow.
It is, but this is, I mean, you know, once again, this is unusual.
This is unusual.
I'm sorry?
Okay.
Go ahead, Peter.
Sorry,
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. I joined late because I got confused with all the time zones.
Hold on one sec. I'm having difficulty understanding. I'm turning my volume down. Hold on. Okay, I'm sorry. Can you say that again? Sorry, I still don't understand. Who's speaking?
Peter, were you trying to talk?
Peter,
or
were you trying to talk or
you yourself?
I was going to, but somebody else was speaking. I didn't want to interrupt them.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, but that's all right. Peter, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Bill, you know, our hearts are with you. You sound amazing, and I'm really appreciative for how you've updated us and everything. It's been amazing. We've been all thinking about you for a long time now. So I was just curious. I know you've had a lot of trouble in recent years with UTIs. How is hospice helping you with that, or is that something of the past now?
They have told me that they will help me whenever I need it. I've been lucky though. I haven't had a UTI for quite a while, for probably a couple of months. And so I haven't, you know, needed to call them in, but they have made it clear that, I mean, they know about my history of UTIs, and they've made it clear that if I do run into trouble, that they'll be here.
Yeah, that's something that I just wanted to mention, that this dance between palliative care, whatever that involves, and hospice is really up to each hospice doctor, the doctor who runs the hospice. And some hospices are a lot more flexible in how they will treat you and what they will treat you with. For example, some hospices won't give you a transfusion if your hemoglobin gets low. Other hospices will give you a transfusion. So it's something you have to ask. Now, when I was with Bill, we had hoped that Bill could stay with the Roswell Park palliative care group, and then when he was ready, transition over to hospice. But that option wasn't available, A, for insurance reasons, and B, because that program that they had at Roswell Park is no longer being used, although I've seen it used at other hospitals. So again, there's this fine dovetailing that you have to create between hospice and palliative care.
Yes, and I'm glad that you're raising this issue, Rick. Once I went into hospice care, Roswell Park was no longer available to me as technically as a source of treatment, because there aren't any more treatments, of course, or even, you know, for advice. The hospice team runs the show completely. But having said that, I need to tell you that a couple mornings ago, Kamal Chada called me, and he said, Bill, I know you're in hospice, and of course, and I want you to feel free if you have any issues that you think that I can help you with. Whoa, what? Hold on, there's a lot of feedback or
Yeah,
something.
we'll mute.
I got him muted.
So,
Keep going.
he said, if there are any issues that you think that I can help you with, I mean, he's not going to get paid for it, but he said to feel free to call him. So this is unique. I mean, it's not, I'm just, this reflects the fact that Kamal is a colleague of mine at Roswell. And so, it's not something that a lot of patients would be able to take advantage of. But the other, I think, really important thing to keep in mind is that, it's this dichotomy between commercial hospice providers and volunteer hospice providers like the one in Buffalo. And the commercial ones, my wife Deb read an article a couple of days ago that described how slimy these commercial providers can be. They're out to make money, and at the patient's expense. Certainly that's not all of them, but it's something that you have to be aware of. And if you can hook up with a volunteer organization like the one that I'm fortunate to have been able to hook up with, then that is going to be, you're going to have a superior experience. I should also, while I'm thinking of it, I mean, the other thing that hospice provides, in addition to, all its equipment and, care, they will send, when we get back from our trip to Vermont, they're going to start sending someone in to help them clean the house. I mean, this is just phenomenal. And one of the things that they provide is music therapy, which I don't know quite yet what that involves, but I love music, so I'm looking forward to finding out more about it. I've already asked them if that means that I can perhaps Buffalo has really a world-class orchestra, the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. And so I'm thinking of inviting them to give a concert in our living room. I don't think that's not going to happen, but it would be nice if it is. I mean, I think the music therapy, that could be a really valuable experience, just to help you relax. They also offer massage therapy. I don't think that I'm going to be able to take advantage of that because I have so many nets in my skeletal system that it can be painful to touch. I'm concerned that massage would be painful. There was something else that give me a minute to think about. There was something else that just went through my mind about what they provide in the way of music therapy, massage therapy. Boy, I'm not going to be able to remember it. There's something else. Oh, here it is. They provide Roswell will. Oh, okay. So I will still interact with clinicians at Roswell because, as some of you might remember, I have an intrathecal pain pump installed underneath my skin that pumps a steady stream of drugs into my pelvic region, where I had a lot of radiation damage when I first was diagnosed because my tumor was so aggressive that they needed to blast it. And so, my intrathecal pain pump needs to be refilled every 5 weeks. And only Roswell can do that. So I will be going back to them for that. But then the other thing that Roswell will provide going forward is acupuncture, which I think is admirable for, an organization like Roswell. The goal is to reduce the dependence of patients on narcotics. And so I had my first acupuncture session back about a week or so ago. They put me in a bed on the fifth floor of the hospital at Roswell, and I, with a beautiful view looking out over the southern part of the state, and they stuck me with needles in my ear and in my belly, and it didn't work. So, meaning that I didn't really feel any benefit from it. But I haven't given up. I'm going to try it again. I think that part of the problem might be that I'm a scientist, and so I'm naturally skeptical of, alternative medicine of this sort. But that doesn't mean that it does work clearly for lots of patients. And so I am going to try it again at some point in the near future. But so far, it really hasn't worked.
Bill,
yep.
I wanted to just get Carl Foreman into the conversation. Because before you came on the line, he was just talking about acupuncture, and B,
okay.
before you came on the line, he was also talking about adjusting his olaparib dose according to side effects he might be feeling. And if you're up to it, and only if you're up to it, Carl posed a question that you're one of the few people I think that is capable of responding to.
Sure.
And
hi, Carl.
Hi, Bill. I feel so emotional right now listening to your story, just trying to keep from crying because you're such an important person to me, and I wish you all the best. So,
thank you, Carl.
I'm trying to
I
compose myself.
appreciate it. Yeah.
So,
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I guess a first question I did have, you said you're 148 pounds. How tall are you?
I'm not very tall. I'm 5'5", I think now. I mean, I've lost some height. Back in March, I had a really bad fall at my older brother's house in Vermont. I got to the top of the stairs at his house and tipped over backwards and slid down the stairs on my back. And so that introduced a bunch of compression fractures, and so that cost me an inch or two. So I'm about 5'5".
Wow. So a couple of, well, I guess another quick question is, what's your PSA at this point?
I don't know.
Okay.
And the last time it was measured was in July, and it wasn't very high. It was somewhere around 8, I believe. But the clinicians have said there's no point in keeping track of it anymore.
I think it was higher, Bill. I think it was a little higher than that, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah. You.
But the point is that PSA is not a great marker at this point in time, Carl. Really, the best way is to be scanning and comparing scans. But Carl, why don't you pose that question as to how do you know whether the disease is progressing, or how do you know whether this is just a
side effect of medication?
Yeah, of the drugs you're taking. Bill, did you get that? Did you hear that question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so this is a really good question, Carl. It's really, so this booklet that the hospice organization gave us describes what progression will be like. And, you know, basically it says that, you know, my body will gradually shut down. I'll, you know, which is already, as I said earlier, it's already happening. My legs are weaker. You know, eventually I'll become more confused. Well, I'm not confused at all at the moment, but, you know, eventually I will have to deal with mental confusion and, you know, and pain. And so, you know, those are the things that I'm going to be looking out for. I can tell you that back a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago or so, I was having a significant amount of pain in my midsection and having trouble breathing. And I had an acute anxiety attack because I really didn't think I was going to wake up the next morning. But it turned out, and this is an important lesson too, it turned out that the constricted feeling that I was experiencing in my midsection was due to constipation. So, you know, once I got the shit out of me, I felt great. But there was a period of several hours where I really thought that I was dying. And, you know, so constipation is, as you know, probably some of you know, it is just it can be a real tear for cancer patients in general, you know, in part because so many drugs, cause it. But if you know that that's what's happening, then, you know, that hopefully that can make it easier to avoid the sort of anxiety attack that I suffered when I was having these feelings a couple of weeks ago. But as far as, so Carl, as far as, you know, progression, you know, what, I don't know what else I can say about it other than that I'm not sure, you know, what it's going to involve beyond what I described. And I'm reluctant to ask. You know, I don't want to know. Because if I do know, then I'm going to be worried about it. And so I'd rather just focus on, you know, maintaining, you know, being as content and happy as I can be. And, you know, and especially with regard to my family, I think that, you know, I have 2 daughters who are in their early 30s, and I just so badly want this to be as easy as possible for them, and of course for my wife, Deb, too. And so I'm really focusing hard on making that possible, and I'm not thinking about progression. I will, you know, I mean, this is what I'm going to learn about over the next, you know, 20 years or so.
I guess
I'm kidding. I'm kidding about the 20 years. I'm going to learn about this over the, you know, next, hopefully 6 to 9 months, and I'll let you guys know what I'm experiencing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I know when we talked a while back, I believe you said, and when this all started 7 years ago, they gave you maybe 2 years, and here you are 7 years later, and you've beaten the odds and which is wonderful. And something for me to also aspire to look forward to, and I've been on similar treatments as we've discussed that you have had, having immunotherapy on the Provenge, now on the olaparib, and so specifically on the olaparib, I've been on it for about 4 months. 2 months ago, I had my last appointment with my oncologist, and I told him, you know, all of a sudden I'm starting to feel some side effects. I'm feeling some tightness in my legs. a little difficulty walking. When I sit in the pelvic area, there's some pain, and he actually gave me a prescription for a tramadol to help with the pain, and I take that sparingly. But my main question to him, I says, how do I know whether it's a progression of the disease or simply a matter of the side effects of the olaparib? Because when I look up the side effects of olaparib, I'm seeing that I have multiple side effects relating to that medication. And his answer to me was that he says, well, I don't think it's a progression of your disease. Well, one of the reasons being is that as you're on the olaparib and your PSA has been undetectable for the past 2 months. So, and as Rick mentioned earlier, PSA is not the only factor, determinant of progression of disease, and I'm kind of in a quandary, and damned if you do, damned if you don't, as far as wanting to know. But I am having an MRI tomorrow morning of the lumbar spine to see, and I went to a pain management doctor. So I'm just trying to figure out, along with everybody else, what's the heck is going on. So the oncologist recommended, let's do some drug modification, and he lowered my dose from 4 100 milligram tablets twice a day to 3 100 milligram tablets twice a day. I've been on that for 2 weeks, and I called the doctor back yesterday, and I said, no, I'm feeling better. And he said, okay, let's go back to the 4 and see how you do back on the full dose. So I'm in the middle of that as well.
Okay. Yeah, so, Carl, I think that your case is probably more similar to mine than probably anyone else on the call. And you and I have talked about this. And so, yeah, I mean, the olaparib, well, maybe, I think you and I might have talked about this in the past, but I eventually failed olaparib. As does everybody at some point. And in my case, it was because this gets a little bit complicated. So remember, I'm a genetic, and I'm going to try to describe this in a way that's understandable. So Carl, like me, has a mutation in the breakout gene, a pathogenic mutation. And that is the basis for our sensitivity to this drug called olaparib, which inhibits a enzyme called PARP that is involved in DNA repair. And so as long as that mutation exists, well, hold on. Sorry, I was getting another call. Can you guys hear me again?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So olaparib worked for me for 3 years, meaning that it knocked my PSA down to close to 0. I don't think it was ever 0, but it bought me 3 years, and that's because the mutation made me sensitive to this drug. But then something happened that's called a reversion mutation, which means that the original mutation in the breakout gene reversed and became, my breakout gene now was what we call in the genetic business wild type, normal, which was, normally that would be great. But for me, it meant that I was no longer sensitive to olaparib. So it was terrible. And there was nothing that could be done about it. It just meant that olaparib no longer worked. And it was at that point. So this happened, within the last year, and that's the reason why I'm in hospice. That was my last, the last trip in our bag of tricks, and it's gone. Hopefully that was clear to you guys.
Hey, Bill, this is Glenn. I just wanted to, well, first of all, thank you on behalf of all of us for taking all of this time to benefit us with your experience. It's extremely valuable. I just have one more request before we let you go, and that is hopefully you will participate in some form of social, online social platform journaling, like Caring Bridge, where you can keep all of us updated on how you're doing. Do you think you can do that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So why don't you, I'm not sure what might be the best vehicle for doing that, but if you let me know, what might be the easiest for the rest of us to access, I would be happy to do that.
Yeah. Bill, I've spoken to Chris, your sister-in-law, about creating a caring bridge site for you. And so when you next speak to Buzz and Chris, why don't you remind them? And I think Chris was going to look into it and take care of it.
Okay, terrific. I'm grateful that you did that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll keep you posted. Okay.
So once again, thank you very much. We all wish you all best possible outcomes. You're in our thoughts and prayers, and we send you good energy, and we'll be hearing from you on Caring Bridge, if not on the call.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And I haven't been participating in the call as frequently as I wished that I had been in the past, but I'm going to do it more often going forward. And I just, I mean, I have to say that it was a very, very fortunate day when I found Answer Cancer and Rick. I mean, this organization has been just so helpful to me, and I'm really, really grateful for, the benefits that I've gotten from it, and especially for the friendship that I've gotten from it. And,
thank you.
And I will keep you guys posted, and eventually, if I can't do that myself, my wife will. I wish you all the very, very best going forward. I just, this is not a time for regret, but I can't avoid telling you that one of the regrets that I can't avoid is that I was not able, as a cancer scientist, to make more of that dent in the problem of cancer.
You've done plenty, Bill. Believe me.
All right. Well, thank you very much, all of you. And, if at any point you guys have questions, feel free to contact me by email. Hopefully you have my email address, or you can get it from Rick, or give me a call. I mean, I would, I'd be happy to help in any way that I can.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Best to you, sir.
All right.
We love you, Bill. Take care. Talk to you soon.
By the way, you're welcome to stay here and stay and listen. If you're up to it.
Yeah, I will. I'll stay as long as I can. I'm still feeling fortified from the ice cream sundae that Deb and I got. So I'll hang out as for at least a little while longer.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Back to you, Len.
All right then. Carl, do we need to return to you, or are you okay for tonight's session?
Well, I feel bad that I'm the only one who's taking up most of the time. So if you'd like to move on, please do so. And I will reach out to Bill directly. I do have his email and his phone, and I will speak to him directly. And clearly, we all wish him well, and our prayers are with him.
Very well said. Okay, thank you, Carl. And let's move on to Kim from Colorado. Kim, are you new with us?
No. It's
Okay,
Jim, not Kim.
Sorry?
It's Jim, not Kim.
Jim, that's what I thought, but Jake called you Kim. Okay. Yeah, you were on the call, I think, last week, weren't you?
Yeah, the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Okay, so what's on your mind tonight?
Really, I was calling in just to listen and learn today. I really didn't have anything specific on my end.
Oh, okay. All right then. Let's see. Peter, you said you wanted to talk a little bit about oligometastatic.
Yes. It's a subject we don't talk about very often directly, and what piqued my interest was an article synopsis that Rick sent out the other day, kind of drawing a difference between oligometastatic and any metastatic spread of prostate cancer, indicating that it might have, far more measurable good results. And it made me, because I put myself in that situation. And the reason I put myself in that situation is because I jumped on a scan very early that picked up a couple of treatable lymph nodes where my disease had gone metastatic, and I was able to zap them. And it's an odd. I don't know how to think about it. Whether it's an actual aspect of prostate cancer, or whether it's a moving target and it mutates into more metastatic disease. But maybe I'm in my car, so I don't have the article in front of me that Rick sent, but it just piqued my interest to see that maybe, getting scans early, keeping an eye on things and treating things early might be beneficial rather than letting things get to the point where there's considerable metastatic spread. So I know I've heard Dr. Kwan speak a fair bit at the PCRI conference over the years, and he seems to attribute his success to jumping on oligometastatic disease, which by definition I think is 5 or 6 or fewer Mets that are treatable by radiation usually.
Right.
And so I just want to bring that up as a topic of conversation. I don't have an answer for it, but I put myself in that category, at least for now.
Well, I guess. Oh, sorry. Who's speaking? Oh, I think I was getting feedback. So I guess I'm the newest team member of metastatic disease, and I think the article that Peter's referring to indicated that they now believe oligometastatic state is substantially different from polymetastatic as a biological difference in the disease prognosis and progression, if I understood it correctly. And that came as a surprise to us because one would just normally assume that you begin oligometastatic and then you simply progress to polymetastatic. You start off with a few metastases and then they multiply. But they seem to think that it was quite a different biological disease in a sense. Would you agree with that, Rick?
Yeah, I don't really understand it, but that's what
Yeah.
I believe this comment said. It was really a quiz, I think, that on metastatic prostate cancer that I saw on Cancer Today, and I passed it along to Peter and to Len. And there were several things in there that seemed a little strange that I know Len picked up and I picked up. And one of them was this point, and I can't explain it. It needs more research. Len, have you looked at it any further, or do you have any thoughts on it?
No, I haven't looked into it any further, and I was just curious if Bill Burhans has any thoughts on that.
I don't, but I'd love to see this article. If one of you could send it to me, I'd be grateful. You know, my sense is that it's not that different from any other type of, disease. But I'd like to read the article and see what they have to say.
Yeah, unfortunately, as Rick pointed out, it wasn't actually an article. It was kind of a little slideshow quiz. It was really bizarre. I don't know. They didn't reference any particular article, but they.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll go back to it. I'll see what else I can learn, and if there is some article that actually gives some further discussion and elaboration on it, Bill, I'll certainly forward it to you.
Okay, but send me, whatever, even if it's not referenced at all, I'd like to see whatever it is you've been reading.
Okay.
If you could send it to me.
Okay, I'll do that.
Great.
Okay, so I think I'm the last one on the list here. Then maybe we can go back to Carl after all.
Since you took a roll call, Larry Fish has joined, and so has Les. I don't believe you checked in with them.
And we have a caller as well.
Yeah.
That isn't identified.
Thank you, Rick.
That's me. I'm just hanging out.
Hi, Ken.
No, somebody else on the telephone. We got you, Ken.
Someone joined on the telephone probably about 45 minutes ago whilst Bill was speaking, and we haven't identified you. But if you'd like to identify, that'd be great. If not, just keep listening.
And by the way, I'm not even sure I ran the board on everyone. Is there anyone who wants to take the floor tonight that I haven't yet asked? Jake, anything from you? I don't think I asked you.
I was going to say, I finally got Rick trained to check with me first, and you skipped right over me.
Go ahead.
If nobody else has anything, I can mention a little bit about my first blood test after I started Zytiga.
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay. Am I next?
You're on.
Oh, well, I was on I had been on Xtandi, and then I started Zytiga, and I was on it for about 3 weeks when I had my blood test, and it did still go up, but it increased from 14.1 to 14 something to 16.1, which is only about 10%, with a doubling time of about 7 months compared to a doubling time on the Xtandi of only 1 month. So I'm hoping that after another couple of months on the Zytiga, it will hopefully halt the PSA rise, or at least either halt it or hopefully get reduce it, reverse it. So I hope I'm one of those 10% people who can actually respond to it after being on the Xtandi.
I hope so too.
Yeah, and Lynn,
I
I
mean,
had
Lesson
one.
learned, Len. Lesson learned. Pay attention. So
I had
future
one thing
reference,
for
always call Jake first.
Jake. One thing for Jake from Ken. You know, Jake, you were right about SSID and the Medicare. Absolutely. The time starts when you get your award for SSID. So my award for SSID was in March of this year. I have to wait 28 months from March. Sorry to say that, Rick, but that's the way it is.
But I can only tell you that they backdated mine. So it must have changed since the 2010. But when I got mine, they backdated it 24 months to my date of diagnosis.
I'm going to appeal it, but that's what I was told by the first girl I talked to, and then I talked to a manager, and they were adamant that it starts on the award date, SSID award date.
Okay, SSDI. Yeah.
SSDI.
Yeah. Well, I defer to you obviously and to Jake, but I know that in my own case, I didn't have to do that.
Actually, I went back and looked it up afterwards, and I was going to apologize to Rick because I thought I had it wrong, and I still think I did. I was saying 12 months, and that's definitely not right. The bottom line is Social Security rules are crazy. They're convoluted. They don't make any sense, and they're really hard to fathom. But anyway, hopefully, at least you're on the right track, Ken. You found your information. Now you know what you have to do. So
yeah, I'm going to scream bloody murder and appeal.
Well, or do like Rick recommends, get an attorney.
Yeah, this is Bill speaking. Yeah, this is a real bugaboo, and I think it really depends a lot on the individual personnel at Social Security. If you get lucky, and have somebody who really knows how the rules work, then you're going to have a better experience. But a lot of these guys just don't know very much at all.
Yeah, I can say that I'm also pending. I was turned down twice for Social Security disability, and it was the state of New Jersey where I live that conducted the review and turned me down. I am now pending. I have obtained an attorney. I used a website called atticuslaw.com or atticus.com. If anybody remembers To Kill a Mockingbird, Atticus Finch was the attorney on there. So I have an attorney, and I was told that the appeal process can take anywhere from a year to 18 months, and that my award would be backdated to the original date of disability, which right now is almost a year ago.
Yeah, when I went through this is Bill again, I had no problem. I applied and I got it without any issues at all. So it really depends on who you're dealing with.
Yeah, I think we're conflating a couple of issues here. So the first issue is when you are eligible for payment. And that used to be, I can't say now, but it used to be that there was a maximum of 12 months prior to your date of being approved, provided that your date of diagnosis was previous. So if you were diagnosed in September of 2014, and you got onto disability on the 1st of January of 2018, then that would mean that 1, you were eligible for 12 months maximum of prior payments, and 2, you were immediately eligible to go on Medicare. And in my own situation, I got 12 months back, and I had to wait, I think, 3 months. I'd done 24 months, and I had to wait about 3 months, and then I was eligible for Medicare. Now, that may have changed. If, on the other hand, you were diagnosed 12 months earlier, you'd still get your 12 months back payment, but you would have to wait an additional 16 months to get onto Medicare. And that's how it used to be back around 2010, 2011. I don't know if the rules have since changed.
Any follow-up questions, guys?
Well, I do know that, I got SSDI. I had to go through the state, not, I had to go through Maryland, and I got it approved and got paid. And then automatically, after a certain period of time, they automatically put me on Medicare and started deducting the Medicare cost from my little bitty Social Security check that I was getting. So I didn't have to apply for Medicare at all. I had to apply for SSDI, which was a nightmare.
Right. You don't have to apply for Medicare. It's when you're eligible and they contact you.
Right.
And you have to have been, it has to be at least 28 months from your date of diagnosis, or it was. And your date of diagnosis is not the same as the date that you enter Medicare, that you're approved for Medicare.
Like I said, it's convoluted and confusing to me, at least. Hopefully the rest of you can figure it out better. I'm good, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. But they're very confusing. As is typical with anything government run. Anybody else?
No, I'll just fill you in once I go through the process. I'll fill you in, find out, and I'll tell you what happens.
Okay.
Thanks.
Because I'm gonna work on it more. I'm not gonna give up just based on what one person or two people told me. Because I think Bill's right. I think it depends on who you get there. It shouldn't, but I think it probably does.
Okay, but Ken, I think you're clear on the differences that we're drawing out here, right?
100%.
Okay, good. That's all we can do. Okay. So I'm
Jake,
just wondering.
Rick, I just wanted to get back to Jake for a moment on the Zytiga subject. So 2 questions, Jake. What dose of prednisone are you taking, and how often, and how many? Once a day, twice a day?
Yeah, I'm taking 5 milligrams once a day.
Okay.
With food.
And how often are they going to be checking your PSA levels?
Every 40 days or so is when I go to the doctor. She wants me to go every 30 days. Rick says it should be 3 months, so I kind of compromise and I go every 40 to 45 days. But I do get a PSA every time.
Yeah. Well, I think in your case, since it is probably a better idea to get it more often than once every 3 months, because you just switch to Zytiga and you want to know if it's working or not.
Right. And as long as the insurance pays for it, I'm happy to get my blood drawn. She draws my blood anyway because she wants to keep track of other things that she worries about. So I just said, please add the PSA and testosterone each time.
Okay.
Thanks. You were going to tell us about your bone biopsy.
Yes, that's what I'll do now. So I guess if Bill is still on, just to fill him in, Bill, I was at the NIH for a clinical trial for this new plausibly the most sensitive scanning agent called 18F DCF PYL PSMA PET scan. It's known as
I'm to hear more about it.
for short. And so they did find an area of uptake in the right anterior iliac bone, which is the right hip, the crest of the right hip. And so they wanted me to come back for a bone biopsy and for mutation analysis. So I did that just last week. And what I wanted to let the guys know here is that if any of you do undergo a bone biopsy, you do have some options as to what type of anesthesia that you want to receive. So basically, the three options are local, which is lidocaine injection into the hip. Then there's a twilight sedation, which is propofol and Versed. And finally, there's the knockout, complete knockout, general anesthesia. So when I spoke to the doctor who was going to perform the bone biopsy, I said, well, I'd like to do the topical, but what happens if it gets a little too intense? Can we switch to some additional pain relief? And he said, yes, we can. We can start an IV on you before you even go in for the procedure, so that if after we administer the topical, you find that it's a little too much pain, we can start running some fentanyl, take the edge off. So that seemed like the best option for me. I mean, other people might prefer the other two options. I prefer to be awake and alert throughout the whole process, and so that's what I chose to do. And I'm glad I did it because it was a very interesting procedure. It almost sounds a bit medieval in the tools that they use, and I asked them to show me the tools afterward. There's a mallet, which is kind of a euphemism for a hammer. It's got a metal head to it, and there's a chisel. And so after they make a small incision in the skin and give you the lidocaine, then they place the chisel on the bone and they hammer away until they break through the hard surface, outer surface of the bone. And once they've done that, and believe me, it took about 15 very firm, hard blows that were shaking my entire pelvic bone. And I had to be honest, I was thinking, geez, I hope these guys don't fracture my pelvis. So anyway, after I was maybe halfway through these hammer blows, the pain started to increase a bit and it started to radiate. So I told them to start the fentanyl. So I had 25 micrograms of fentanyl. It's a very low dose, and I still maintain complete awareness and consciousness, just took the edge off the pain. And so once they broke through, then they take a drill and drill through to the area that they want to sample. It's a 4-inch drill, so it seems like a bit overkill, but hopefully they didn't go in 4 inches. I don't have the results yet. I'll have the results in a few days, they told me. But I just wanted to let you guys know what it's like to have a bone biopsy. And so you can, if you ever need one, hopefully not, but if you ever need one, you can be forewarned that you do have some options as to what type of anesthesia you want. The whole procedure itself actually only took about 20 minutes.
You said they switched you to fentanyl? I thought you said option 2 was propranolol and something else, but then you said they switched you to fentanyl?
No, the other option, Jake, was like a twilight sedation, which is something they usually give you if you have a colonoscopy. So they start with either fentanyl or propofol,
Okay.
and then they give you Versed, which makes you forget everything.
Okay.
And I don't like.
You said propofol, but then you said fentanyl, so they ended up giving you the fentanyl instead of the propofol.
Yes, they gave me the fentanyl as an adjunct to the local anesthetic.
Okay.
So throughout the whole procedure, I was wide awake and alert. And in fact, I was watching, I was being moved in and out of a CT tunnel while they're doing this, and the images projected onto a fluoroscope, and all I had to do was turn my head a little bit, and I could see exactly what they were doing. I could see the chisel breaking through, into the bone. It seemed like it went in quite a bit. I hope it was hard for me to gauge, the scale of what I was looking at, but it looked like it was going in a few inches. Yeah, so I hope that clarified it.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, Len, were you watching this on a monitor? Is that what you said?
Yes, it was, Bill.
Yeah, okay. I went through something similar at Sloan Kettering, and it was very interesting to see this happening in real time on a monitor over my head.
Yeah, exactly. What type of anesthesia did you have, Bill?
I had lidocaine injection, and that was it, and that was enough. I didn't feel any pain, so I was, completely aware of what was going on.
All right.
Where was your bone biopsy, Bill? What part of your body, I meant?
Yeah, it was in my thigh. This was it was quite a while ago at Sloan Kettering. But yeah, I mean, it's been so long ago. I think it was in my thigh, but I'm not sure that was.
Len, what's the reason for the biopsy, and what does the results tell you?
Don't forget, this is a clinical trial at the NIH. They're using an experimental radio tracer compound. So when they do the PSMA PET scan with this experimental radio tracer, if they find areas of uptake, they need to follow it up with a biopsy, because that's the only way they'll know if the scan is picking up a genuine metastatic lesion, or if it's somehow a false positive. So
and if it's a lesion, then you'll get it radiated?
Yeah, according to my oncologist in New York, that's what he would do. He said if it's confirmed positive, he would treat it with SBRT spot radiation, and they're also going to do a mutation analysis on the specimen, which would be very interesting to see how that differs, if at all, from the mutation analysis I had 5 years ago when I was first diagnosed at Sloan Kettering.
Yeah, that should be very interesting.
Right.
So then that was the only spot they found, just that one spot on the spine.
Well, it was the only. Peter, you have to mute because I'm hearing my feedback in my voice. It was the only area that they felt was important to sample with a biopsy. There were some other suspicious areas on the sacrum and 2 lymph nodes, which appeared to be the same 2 lymph nodes that I was diagnosed with 5 years ago in the pelvic region. However, when my oncologist read the report and saw the scan, he felt that those other areas of uptake were probably sclerotic at least in the sacrum, that they weren't real positives. He wasn't concerned about them. The only thing he was concerned about was the right hip. And apparently that's the only thing the NIH was concerned about. These were all very small lesions. And at first they had to deliberate for a few days on whether or not they would have success if they went ahead with the biopsy. And apparently they'd had experience with very small lesions and success, so they called me back to do it.
So, Len, did the information that they developed, is, in the biopsy change the approach that they took to treating you?
Well, I don't have the information yet, Bill. They haven't.
Oh, okay.
I haven't received the report.
Okay.
What was that radio tracer called?
I'm sorry?
The long name is 18F-DCF-PYL, but is generally referred to as simply PYL because the other is too much of a mouthful.
Right, yeah.
And currently it's believed to be the most sensitive scanning agent that they have.
Yeah. And this is
better even than an accident.
Oh, yeah. Better than Aximin, better than gallium-68.
And how about lutetium?
Sorry?
Is it superior to lutetium?
I'm only aware of lutetium being used as a therapeutic, not a diagnostic.
Right.
Yeah, okay, yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Len, for that. That's I was wondering about it myself.
Okay, guys. Let's see. Oh, we went over time. And I see some of our guys are leaving already. So unless anyone has anything they want to add, we can close it out.
Can I just make one final comment,
Sure.
Bill? I want to very quickly tell you about an interesting experience that I had a couple weeks ago. I've been reading a book that I highly recommend. That was written by Desmond Tutu, the Archbishop of South Africa, and the Dalai Lama. It's called The Book of Joy. And it's just a wonderful book. And I was reading it while I was hospitalized at Roswell a couple weeks ago, and fell asleep in my bed. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was an image of the Dalai Lama standing next to my bed. And he reached out his hand and took my hand, and he said, "Bill, it's going to be okay." Which I, took to understand that I wasn't going to be cured, but that, perhaps things would be okay for my family, especially. So, as I think, many of you probably know, as you approach, the final horizons of your survival, you frequently have hallucinations. And, this may have been a hallucination. It probably was. I'm a scientist after all. But it was, I have to tell you that it was a very, it was an experience that I value tremendously going forward.
Well, that's fantastic, Bill. It's a very comforting experience, whether hallucination or real. Very comforting, I'm sure. What was the name of the book?
The name of it is The Book of Joy, and it's by the Dalai Lama and Bishop Desmond Tutu.
It's $14 on Amazon.
Yeah.
Hardcover.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Is that Book of Joy, or again, what was the title?
Yeah, Book of Joy.
Thank you very much.
There's also a subtitle, Lasting Happiness in a Changing World.
Okay.
It's about
It's got 1,344 customer reviews, all 5.0. So everybody likes it. Well, I shouldn't say all. 8%. 8% gave it a 4.
That's pretty darn good.
Looks like a very successful book.
Well, I'm going to get it. I'm a big fan of the Dalai Lama, so it's on my list. Thank you, Bill.
Sure.
All right, guys. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
You bet.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.